All right, let's go ahead and get started for our ADL636 pre-recorded webinar for week 3. Excuse me. So just the agenda for this pre-recorded webinar is the following, just some general class things. We've already gone over these in the previous webinars, so I'll go through those very quickly. And then we'll get right into the week 3 assignments. Okay, so one question people have is when will grades be posted? It's the Tuesday or later after the class ends. The class ends on the last Saturday of class. So it's just a reminder that the week 4 assignments, everything is due by that last Saturday of class at 11:59 p.m. or midnight of that day. So just to be aware of that. Discussion boards, actually for this week, there are no discussion boards for ADL 636, so we can just go right by that. And then as a reminder, I do have a website that has maybe some tips and tricks and things like that that you might want to check out. Okay, weekly meetings. Week 4 webinar, I'm planning on doing a pre-recorded webinar just like this one. And then also we will be doing for week 4, you'll be presenting your e-portfolio as well. So we can kind of use that as a sort of webinar. I'm going to allow you to pre-record your presentation of your e-portfolio, kind of like I'm doing right here, so that if you make a mistake or need to pause or have an interruption or something, then you're able to do that. It takes a little bit of the stress off doing a live presentation like that. You will need to be sharing the recording with me so that I can share it with the rest of the class. I can either post it to my website or we can think of some other method. But you'll need to be able to download that recording and share that recording with me. You can also post it to YouTube or something like that if you're comfortable with that. It's kind of your choice there. So. Well, that's enough about that. So, but yeah, we'll be dealing with that next week. All right, let's see. Rubrics, always check rubrics, of course, so you don't miss points. Week 4 coming up has quite a few things, but we'll get to that in just a little bit here. So our topic for this week is what is summative assessment? So a little bit different than formative assessment. Summative assessment is typically at the end of a unit or the end of a chapter, end of some concept, to see if the students truly understood the concept. Sometimes you can use this to maybe go back and review if you found that students have certain areas that they maybe have a little bit of trouble in. You can go back and review those areas before you move on to the next thing. Oftentimes that comes with the caveat, if you want to call it that, of if you have time, because sometimes in the school system you don't have time for those kind of things, but that's maybe a discussion for another time. But that would be summative assessment, basically checking in to see if students did understand a concept or a unit or a chapter or whatever. At the end of a concept, unit, or chapter, summative assessment can be more formative, even at the end of something like that. I just mentioned end of a chapter or something like that. I just mentioned that sometimes you decide to pause, maybe go back and review some things that maybe weren't completely understood by the class as a whole. And then it becomes a little bit more formative because you're then directing future instruction by going back to that. Summative assessment, in my opinion, can also be more formative if it's a quiz. Halfway through a chapter, I teach math for middle school, and halfway through a chapter, we will take a quiz just to kind of see how they're doing at that point, and then that can kind of guide my instruction for the rest of the chapter there. Do we need to kind of go back and slow down a bit, whatever it is. So that's one way, at least, one or two ways that summative assessment can be more formative. And then the other thing is, how can we assess using online tools? There are plenty of online tools out there. I use a few of them. I use Kahoot, Edpuzzle, and Google Forms regularly, and I like all of those for different reasons. Kahoot is fun. The kids have a good time with it. They do provide some data on a Kahoot, but I tend not to use that too much because the kids just have a good time with that, and it's just a fun way to prepare for a quiz or go over material or something like that. Edpuzzle I use for I use a flipped classroom method in my math class, and so I pre-record math concepts, and the students watch those recordings the night before. But I want to make sure that they are actually attending to those recordings, that they're watching those recordings before they come into class. So I use Edpuzzle because I can insert questions within my video, and I use it just to make sure they're paying attention, but you can also use it to see if they're really understanding the concepts as well. So it can become definitely a formative or possibly even a summative type of assessment there as well. I also use Google Forms for quizzes and things like that. I like that for a couple different reasons. Number one, it saves me time, and as a teacher, we don't have a whole lot of excess time, so that gives me back some of that time that I used to spend grading quizzes. And Google Forms has gotten really good lately in the ability to grade quizzes. It will even grade not just multiple choice, but written answers very well too. So it does a really good job of that. And then Google Forms, I use the data a bit more that it gives me about which questions students may have had trouble with, things like that, that I can review with the class after a quiz or a test or something like that. And then I mentioned one other one. No, Google Forms, Edpuzzle, and Kahoot. Yeah, that's all of them. So, and I use those. I just mentioned some ways that I use those. I'm sure you guys have some other ways as well. All right, class readings. Don't forget about the class readings. There's some great information on there. Infographics was from a previous week, but there's some good information in there each week. See, that's one of those things. I could go back, looping back to your ePortfolio presentation. I could have paused really quickly right there as I saw that, edited this slide, and then started recording again. So that's kind of an advantage of pre-recording. I'm not going to take advantage of it here because I'm not too concerned about it. But if you were with your ePortfolio presentation, that is something that you could do, or you could just re-record if you wanted to. Okay, week 3 assignments. Let's go ahead and jump right into that. Our first assignment for the week is going to be an interview assignment. You'll be conducting your interview. You probably already have this set up with someone probably at your district or something like that, someone like that. There are questions under week 3 in the assignment explanation. Basically, there are, if I remember correctly, there are 8 questions. There are sample questions that you can use. You might want to just stick to those questions. But you don't have to. You can come up with your own questions. And then it says also that you need to come up with at least 2 questions that are not in that sample list. So I would expect 10 questions to be asked and answered in this interview assignment. And then also the second assignment is you're going to be creating an assessment, and you're going to be using a tool like, maybe one of the ones I just mentioned, Google Forms or Edpuzzle or Kahoot or something like that. There's also a list on the class website. If you click on it, there's even some more assessments, some digital tools that you can use for assessments. There's plenty of free ones out there, so don't feel like you have to pay for something. My 3 favorites there are free. So that's very helpful too as well. So you're going to be creating an assessment using one of those digital tools. And then, of course, there's going to be a webinar reflection. So it's pretty informal. It's only meant to be about 3 or 4 paragraphs at the most. The explanation on how to do a webinar reflection like that is in the class website, right near where it says Week 3 Webinar Reflection. Let's see, week 4 assignments. You may want to take a peek at week 4 because it's pretty extensive. So I don't know if you want to get a jump start if you can on week 4, but there's a paper and some other things in there that may take a little bit more time this week, and you have one less day too. So just kind of giving you a heads up there. Okay, and that's about it for this week. Have a great week, and let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to contact me. Thank you.